everybody. Yeah, thanks everyone for coming out today. Really appreciate seeing you all here and hope to offer a really beautiful channeling session. Um, but I guess first we can answer questions about channeling and my experience with it and kind of everything that's come into it. So I kind of had spiritual awakening experiences like 10 years ago, and it was kind of new to me because I was always open and interested in kind of metaphysical and occult things, but I wasn't fully believing it. It was kind of like, ooh, it's like movies. I like to watch these things and play with a Ouija board or something, but I didn't fully believe it. And a lot of really challenging things happened in my life, and I was really young and kind of on my own, and things came together for me to have these really crazy states of opening and bliss and this feeling that everything is interconnected, and I'm on this special path that I didn't really know what it was at first. And from that point on, it was like one thing led to another. I had a really strong call to do yoga, and I did a yoga training. I started teaching yoga at a studio, and they offered to teach me Reiki because it was a yoga and Reiki studio. And that was a whole nother aha moment where I realized, everything is subtle energy. I can channel energy and direct this energy. And that led to channeling, to light work, to discovering books from the Pleiadian beings other people had written. And it was pretty mind-blowing at the time. That was 2012. And I knew that there was this gathering happening in Mexico on the lands of Palenque, where they found the first records of the Mayan calendar. And I didn't really know what life would be like in another country. I didn't have the resources from what a normal rational person would think is possible to go on this trip, but I just put all my money into it and was like, okay, I'm gonna go and see what happens. And a lot of things came together there, and it was pretty profound. I went from there a little bit further south to Guatemala, and I was thinking I should travel all the way to Peru. There was something about the medicine there that was calling to me. But instead, the shaman I met, who was actually an American, but he had some Native American roots, and he'd moved to Guatemala and made his home there. He told me that I shouldn't leave, that I had found the right place to be, and I should keep working with him. And I believed it because in that session with him, so many things shifted, and he could see into me so intently that I realized, okay, this is going to be what I'm doing for a while. So I sat practice with him, sometimes reading auras and sitting in on sessions and doing a lot of practice exercises he had for emotional healing, undoing childhood trauma, and psychic development. And I worked with there were many teachers there that I was working with, actually. It was a whole kind of spiritual community in a small town that is now actually become very bustling. At the time, it was very quaint. And so all of these things came together, and then I started traveling and offering both the Reiki healing and IET, as well as the ceremonies I was learning there and some of the teachings I was learning there. And after a while, as I was doing these sessions, I started to hear voices in my head. And they would just tell me things about what the client on the table needed to hear. And I would say those things to the client during the session, and then all of a sudden I would really feel them release. They would start to breathe deeper, and something palpable would shift in the room when I would say these things. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not just making this up. So what are these voices? And I was really clear in my prayers and meditations, okay, if I'm meant to be channeling something, please let this come through. Please come here. It's actually a lot more elaborate than that, but that's the summary is, please, if this is of the highest good for all, let me meet my guides. And then I started to get more direct messages from specific beings, and as I would speak them aloud, I would kind of enter this light trance state. And I, of course, had a lot of doubt about it at first because it was something totally new, and I'd learned psychic development, but I didn't necessarily learn channeling per se. And then with time, as I listened closely and shared them and people experienced the channeling and asked questions and felt the impact the answers had, I started to believe it myself and then openly shared it, and it's been pretty miraculous for me as it's allowed me to make a lot of connections and travel, and a lot of people have changed a lot of things in their lives, and it's amazing to see how someone can move from a state where they feel kind of depressed and confused and not sure what their purpose in life is, to a year later being like, wow, like I'm filled with passion, I'm filled with joy, I'm filled with excitement for life again. And I hope that that can happen with the entire world, and I know that the work that we do as individuals can really ripple out and make a big difference. So that's my intention in doing this, is to help people find that spark of joy in their heart again, because that is one of the most powerful healing medicines that there is. And it's also contagious. It's like when somebody is lit up and empowered in a joyous state, you can't help but catch some of that energy and feel it within yourself as well. So yeah, I can talk a bit more about the message that comes through and what to expect in a session, but I don't know if anyone has any question for me at all, or about channeling. Yeah.
Does the joy come only when you're talking to the Pleiadians, or is there joy in Reiki?
Oh yeah, the joy is it's in everything. You know, it's the joy is in life. The channeling state is joyous in some way, but it can also be frustrating. Like it can be frustrating for me if I'm doing a session and the person who's asking the questions and receiving the energy isn't open to it. I experience that as well. It's kind of like you're directing a current of water to like a dam, and then it gets stuck. It's what it feels like sometimes. So the joy that they speak about is in literally every moment. And they have this message that's, they say that the formula for raising your frequency and ascending is to act upon your highest excitement to the best of your ability with zero insistence on a particular outcome. And so your highest excitement, they use many words to describe it. It's passion, joy, love, excitement. It's something palpable that you'll feel in your heart, in the center of your being. So obviously, a lot of people have obligations that we have to attend to, though in those moments when you're not obliged to your work or to your routine or to your family, you're really in free time, what do you do? So tune into the heart and ask, out of anything I could do with my time and energy, what creates the most palpable sense of expansion in my heart? You'll feel it as a sensation. And when you find that thing, act on it. Don't just think about doing it. Take a step into it and do it to the best of your ability. So make sure that you have all of the resources available to you so that you have the complete understanding of how to follow through with that action, and let go of insistence on the outcome. And this is where a lot of people kind of get caught up, is that they think, well, if my creativity is so important, I need to be a great artist. But it's not really about the skill or who sees it, it's about the act and the feeling of joy and flow that comes with doing it. And also people will get caught up thinking, oh, okay, well, I did all of these action steps, I tried to make my dreams come true, but then something happened and I didn't get everything I wanted, or it was a huge failure, I feel embarrassed. But all of that is also part of this divine plan. There's so many hiccups that we experience, and almost all of the time that's about teaching us how to do it a different way. I don't believe in punishment. I only believe in this sort of universal level, right? There's no punishment. You only get the return of what you put out. The energetic it's like the same energy that you put out, the same intention, the same, mm, yeah, whatever your intention was comes back onto you. But if you don't get what you were seeking, it's because you could have learned to do it a little bit different. And when we implement the lessons and try it again, then we have another opportunity. And it ultimately doesn't matter what happens, it matters how we feel. And in this world, people are kind of all caught up in, oh, well, we need these results, we need to see it, we need to prove it. And people are disconnected from their hearts. So the real remedy to the times we're in, and also to, the struggles that people go through with depression or disease, is to restore that sense of innocence and purity and joy, and let that carry us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, like their message is, whatever brings you joy, that's it. That's why you're here. So choose that before you choose anything else. Which is, in a sense, really different than what a lot of people learn from religion, or political beliefs, or any kind of ideology. There's so many ideologies in the world where people learn, oh, well, if you want to be a good person, or if you want to be a part of our society, or be a part of this thing, you have to behave this way. And when people do that, they often disconnect from their soul, because every soul wants to be unique. Every soul has this sort of template of what they've come here to share with the world. But if instead you listen to somebody else who tells you how you should be, you're not listening to what your soul wants to express. So it's about going beyond so many of these limiting rules and recognizing, if we're really creating our own realities, we're also creating the framework of reality itself. We're creating our own framework of what is right and wrong for us. So the Pleiadian Council teaches 5 laws of all that is, and these are the only universal laws that apply to every universe and dimension. And it's, first law is that you exist, and you will always exist. You could not stop existing if you tried. So the soul is eternal. You are an eternal being, and you've always existed, and you will always be here. The second law is all is one, and the one is an all. So there's one source. The source created the all that is, which includes this universe and many other universes, so it's a multiverse. But within every single cell and atom of this entire field of existence, the whole thing is contained. And that means every individual is also a microcosm of that one source. Every person out there contains the whole. And so you are source. Is also part of this law. You are source. And if you are looking for a God, the best place to look is within yourself. The next law is as above, so below. Or no, wait, that's not it. That's one of the meanings of it. Hold on. Everything is here and now. Yeah. So everything is here and now. And this is one of the hardest ones to wrap our minds around, because we in humans in this dimension experience linear time. But the beings, like when I'm channeling the Pleiadians, they don't experience linear time. They don't experience physical reality. They experience physical reality because they're able to interact with us. But they don't come from a physical place. They don't exist within a physical space. So there's other dimensions of the all that is that aren't physical and aren't bound by time. And we as humans incarnate into physicality, but the soul and the astral body and these higher spiritual bodies also exist on these other planes. So when we tap into those levels, we can have our past life experiences or future life experiences. We can have experiences of the realms where beings like the Pleiadians or many other of the Galactic Council live, can have experiences of the nature spirits or the fairy realm. And all of those experiences and the seeming past and future and all of these other things, they exist now. They exist in the eternal present moment. And so when we really tune deeply within ourselves, the energy from those other times and spaces can be experienced now. And we experience it because there's a connection. energy can bleed through from one lifetime to another in the now. And that's why anytime you make a change, everything in the universe changes. Okay, the next law is what you put out comes back. And this is karma, or heaven and hell. It's all kind of tied in with this. It's the energy you put out, the intentional good or harm that you cause comes back onto you. And this is in the subtlest of ways. Every little thing you do comes back to you. So when you share good energy and you share good intentions and you intend to do well in the world, that comes back to you in some way. And those who intend to cause harm will have that harm returned onto them. And it comes back to you in the next lifetime. Okay, sure it does, but it comes back to you literally in the present moment. Because when you act out of alignment with your soul integrity, you'll feel that. You'll feel something isn't right. And that shift in your energy is then what attracts in those other things. So this, what you put out comes back. It's all about intention. And one thing these beings also say that I think a lot of people would do well to understand is that the harm that you cause that isn't intentional isn't the same as what you do that is intentional. So many people get trapped in these loops of, oh, well, I did these things and it made so many problems for me, other people, but if you weren't intending it, it's so much different. So there's a lot of holding patterns that people live in, of the guilt and shame that doesn't actually serve that much of a purpose. As those energies, those emotions are there to help us recognize when we've gone off course. But people get stuck in them because they don't allow themselves to forgive. And so that forgiveness is one of the best energies you can put out, because it unconditionally kind of clears the slate of anything negative in our frequency. And it's a really important energy to tap into. The last law is everything changes but these first four laws. So in summary, the first law is you will always exist. All is one and the one is in all. And everything is here and now. What you put out comes back. And everything changes but these four laws. So those 5 laws are a lot simpler than so many of the ways that we've conceived of ourselves and our reality. And it can really simplify things to help us return to that state of unconditional love. So the Pleiadian Council has also channeled a book through that I've edited for the past 9 months. It's called the Guidebook to Living Love on Earth. And that title, Living Love, is about returning to the state of unconditional love. As they say, that the fabric of this reality is unconditional love. And we've incarnated into this denser dimension where there's a forgetting of that. But the process of this ascension is to be within this denser dimension while being able to experience the frequencies and the reality of the higher dimensions, which are really just made of love. And so it's a learning in how to live love on earth and transform this earth plane into a place where there is just unconditional love. Any other questions?
The questions later. Are you
Oh yeah,
channeling?
I'm gonna be channeling. Sorry, I was just
Sure.
talking a lot.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll have so much.
Is it possible to opt out of always existing? Suppose you don't want to always exist, you just want nothingness. Is it possible to opt out?
No, I don't
No?
think so. But not according to them.
That's very tiresome.
Well, you don't always have to exist in the physical plane. You might be able to incarnate into higher planes where there's less density.
You said that they're not physical. I always assumed they went back to their planet from time to time.
Yeah, so beings at this density can, according to what they say, they exist in a more non-physical state, which is kind of like in our dreams. Like when you're dreaming, and especially you might have experienced this if you become aware that you're dreaming and start lucid dreaming, you can change the dream, and all of a sudden, you know, gravity becomes less real. You can teleport, you can fly, you can instantly manifest anything you want. So their reality is tangible. It's like there are things, there's spaces, there's objects, there's beings, but it's permeable. It's like it's created through consciousness. So if it's created through consciousness alone and there's none of the density to it, it can just shift instantly. Um, and so my understanding is that they go from these non-physical dreamlike states into physical space when they prefer that, and then they move back into the non-physical. So it's kind of like as we come in and out of sleep, they come into and out of physical reality.
But do they, if they're in physical reality, do they have a physical body?
Yeah.
Oh, they do?
When they manifest in physical reality, but they often choose to not be in physical reality.
Uh-huh. Oh, that, I had no idea, I never heard that before.
Yeah.
So you could actually just see them and talk to them?
Well, they claim to not. I have not. I have seen beings like fairies who are more of this earthly realm.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that their frequency is so high, so much higher than ours, that if they would come to this world, that it would kind of create panic, because when energy fields are out of resonance, it can disrupt people of a lower frequency. It's kind of like imagining somebody who maybe has a lot of like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the best metaphor. I don't know if you're familiar with like the idea gurus and saints, people of a higher frequency, and like when you see that, or it's common that when people see them or encounter them, all of a sudden like their negative beliefs or their negative ego or something gets triggered just in the presence of such a high frequency. The high frequency brings that unconditional love, but it also, when we're in that higher frequency state, it makes us aware of where we're holding on the negativity. So if they would come, you know, beings that can pop in and out of physical reality onto our earth plane, they might scare us a lot, and they're aware of that, so they don't show up in mass waves to just save the world, because if they tried to do that, it would really freak people out and actually have more negative repercussions for people.
Mm-hmm. So there are, you know, there are obviously some high spiritual beings on this planet in different, you know, teaching in different areas, and I know one person who actually is an avatar, and she says it is hard for her to stay there.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that as well sometimes, as somebody who like works with these energies, that sometimes, wow, this earth plane is very dense and difficult. And it's actually like, if I'm not sharing and kind of doing this energy work, it's a lot harder to be here. Like there have been times in my life where I get so tired, like I think I'm tired of doing this work, and I don't do it for a while, but that makes it worse, because it proves to me, oh, it really is so dense here. But if I start connecting with these beings again and sharing their message and their energy, it's like, yeah, like it is dense here, but I'm seeing the world change. So it's kind of the only way to make it bearable.
Did all this happen time on Atlantis, the Palladians, with the energy changing, and then it was destroyed for that reason?
So my understanding is that there was a lot of interchange between Pleiadians, Syrians, even Arcturians that were coming to the Earth plane at that time, but there was the Atlanteans and the Lemurians, because they both coexisted, were going through some kind of a schism, and the Atlanteans really just wanted to push for their intention to kind of colonize the world, as there were also other peoples on the world, what we would kind of consider indigenous or tribal people that weren't as developed as the Atlanteans, and then they wanted to kind of colonize and convert. And the Lemurians resisted that. So the Atlantean civilization sunk because of their disagreement with Lemuria and their decision to attack Lemuria. They used kind of crystals and seismic force in a way that actually caused the sinking of their own continent inadvertently. But this is also something that's in the book, like the more elaborate story of this, and it comes through other channels as well. But this is like what you put out comes back. So both this is in a micro level and a macro level. And the macro level is that's the second time this has happened, because the first civilization in this particular galaxy was Lyra, and there was a similar thing happening as Lyra was going out to go to other planets and develop colonies, and their sister civilization Vega was in resistance to that idea. No, we should focus on spirituality and healing technologies rather than this rapid development. And so they fought over that, and the conflict never resolved. So it translates into these other conflicts like Atlantis and Lemuria, and also the conflicts that are at place in the world now, where we still have a lot of wars that are about some people wanting resources and control. So yeah, that energy is still very much alive. But beings like, the Pleiadians or any higher dimensional guide can't really intervene. They can only give you the message. And we always have that free will choice to act on the message and the knowledge, or to ignore it. Yeah, I could talk about all this so much as a human, but it might be better to just dive into the channeling. Any last question for me? Dante. And I will just say during the channeling that you can ask any question, and questions of a more personal nature. They might ask you a question in return, or help you kind of explore it so that you can understand it on your own terms rather than just give you a flat-out answer. There's some things that they won't have a very clear answer for. They will say, we don't really have permission to talk about this, and there can be a lot of reasons why, but if those things come up, they will explain it all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did the universe ever have a beginning, or does it simply always exist?
They say it always exists.
Did it have a beginning?
I don't know, maybe ask them that. I never asked them that specifically.
Yes or no?
I mean, me as a human says yes, because something has to have a beginning.
Why?
But I'm not sure. That's just the way that my linear thought works, but I know that the way they see it, probably no, it doesn't have to have a beginning.
As humans, we need a beginning at the end.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. They have said before some things like, the universe itself comes to a total end to only begin as a new universe. So whatever science considers as the Big Bang is, that could just be the end of the universe that existed before this, and it could have just been this endless loop. That's kind of what I think.
Is the Big Bang accurate?
I don't think so.
You think so?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I think there's aspects of it that are accurate. I don't think, science can explain everything, in my opinion. But yeah, let's dive into the channeling. Stop and start this.